sun's down, the soldering iron's hot, and you know what that means. Welcome to Night School, where the zip ties are tight, the code is questionable, and the LEDs never sleep. Hosted by the one and only Bobby, the professor of Pixel Mayhem. We're diving deep into lighting tips, tech fails, sketchy workarounds, and the secrets nobody teaches until now. Whether you're mapping props at midnight or just here for the chaos, this is your crash course in RGB enlightenment. So grab your beverage of choice and remember, there's no syllabus, no rules, and no guarantee we'll make it out with all our fingers. This is Night School.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Night School. Sorry about last week. We had to take just a little time off. This week we have John Spiker joining us, and he will be sharing some of his insights into the craziness of pixel lighting, the ups and downs and workarounds for all the things that we need to do for our lighting show. So let me get John up here. Hey, John.
Hey, hi, Bobby. How are you?
Good, and yourself?
Not bad at all.
Have you started setting up yet?
A little bit. I'm hoping by next weekend to get everything on my roof. But yeah, I put the infrastructure up a couple of weeks ago, and now it's just kind of a waiting to avoid the wind as much as possible.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm in the Northeast, so I have to wait till try and wait for most of the leaves to fall down before I get working on my shows. All right, so you want to get started on this?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, and as with every week, guys, if you have any questions, please post them in the comments, and we'll make sure that John answers them for you.
So, quick introduction. I'm John Spiker. I've been running a Pixel Light show this will be my 10th year. By trade, I'm a software engineer. I absolutely love automation because, to be honest with you, I'm lazy. The more I can automate, the less work I have to do myself. Kind of some context for the rest of this presentation. My show is built around Culp controllers. I've been a Falcon guy for many years. I've used many different types of controllers. Today, I'm primarily Culp just because of the fact that I like to standardize. I'm also always trying to constantly balance creativity, chaos, and cable management. I'm always trying to evolve my display, add new things, really push that envelope of creativity. What can I do? What can I learn from previous years? If you've ever used the Pixel Power Calculator, I created that many years ago. I've updated it multiple times. And at the end of the day, when I'm putting everything up, I'm powered by coffee, curiosity, and an unreasonable number of power injection points within my display. So the roadmap for today, I'm going to quickly talk about core troubleshooting. Ron 2 weeks ago did an amazing presentation. I am not going to cover anything that he even touched. But I will reiterate a couple of things or reinforce some of the things that he talked about. I'll spend a few minutes talking about power, the ground wire, data integrity, voltage, and buffers, or FAMPs if you want to go down that path. I'll spend a few minutes talking about networking. I am not a network engineer. I will talk about that here in a minute, but I will provide some background, some thought, and some points to pay attention to as we go through this. And then really I'm going to spend most of the time today talking about advanced diagnostics, recovery, finding the ghost in the wires, and talking about automation. And at the end, if there's time, a live Q&A. So disclaimer, I am not a professional. I'm just persistent. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not a network engineer or a lighting wizard. I am just somebody who has broken a lot of stuff and occasionally fixed it. Every here and there on trial and error and caffeine fueled experimentation. Your mileage may vary and probably will. Nothing I'm saying today is absolute. It's just my experience. So I'm going to start with core troubleshooting, really where to look when the magic stops working. This is going to be the only slide I have in this section. And I want to reiterate something that Ron talked about 2 weeks ago and talking about follow the packet. The same is true for the journey of a pixel. If we start with X lights, FPP for our schedule, our controllers, and our pixels, anywhere in this chain, something can fail. And we need to be very clear and understanding as to paying attention to that chain of events on how we control our displays. Data, timing, and power equals success. Most problems are within these layers. And I can't stress that enough. If you pay attention from the start to the end, diagnosing problems becomes a lot cleaner and a lot easier. So power and ground and data integrity. When you think about the physical aspect of our displays, every flicker, every crash, every odd color shift can be traced back to one of these. Get them right, and the rest of your physical troubleshooting gets easy. What do I mean by that? Voltage is not equal to power. It's sustainability that matters. Know the numbers before your flickers begin. Really what I mean by that is know your layout, know your setup, know where your bottlenecks are. Where do I have a potential for a problem to be? Did I overload a port knowingly doing that, but just decided to take the chance anyway? We all do it, but just know it. Know where the power of your pixel strings are. Measure the end of the run, not just at the power supply. That gives you a differential between the beginning and the end. Voltage sags grows exponentially with cable length and current draw. It is important to understand that the longer the string of pixels, the more loss you have. Kind of a general aspect is anything above 11 volts is good. Anything below 9.8 volts, you start seeing issues. I'm not going to say it's not going to work. You just might see issues. Power injection. I'll quickly say, in the old days, we said 50 to 100 pixels. I'll be honest with you. Even with today's pixels, it's 150 to 200 pixels. And all of that depends on the wire gauge, brightness patterns, etc. There's no really set rule, but it's just something to consider or think about. Because I've been doing power injection for so many years and kind of the background of it, I have to have at least one slide talking about it. Don't fight voltage drop. Feed it where it matters. Voltage drop is inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what in our display. Power injection or power balancing or anything else you do to manage the power within your display is going to make sure that your voltage stays consistent. Some things to think about. You can inject at both ends. You have your incoming power and your outgoing power at the end. In between props is always a good place to do it if you have a string of props on a line. Use the same power supply and tie your grounds together. I'm going to talk more about grounds later, but never cross the V+. I'm just going to reiterate that. Don't daisy chain injection wires. Each one should be direct from the power source. It's always a thought or a consideration to daisy chain. We kind of do it with power balancing on a prop, but you're balancing within the same prop anyway, so you're not really daisy chaining. If you're having individual runs, keep them individual runs. You can never over inject to be at the end of the day. There are some downfalls to it. There are some things to consider. For example, if you daisy chain, you have a risk of overloading a single line and blowing a bunch of fuses or having other issues. So don't do that. The end of my power injection. Ground loss looks like power loss. What do I mean by that? A lot of times when somebody comes in and they make a statement, they say, hey, I've got flicker. 10 people in the comments are going to go, you need to power inject. Well, that's true. Power injecting is going to fix the problem, but it's not going to resolve the underlying issue. Most of the time, that is caused by uneven grounds. Your ground line is your return line back to the controller for data. So if you have any breaks in that or you have any degradation in your ground, you're going to have random effects that happen. Power injection, though, will add additional ground. That'll eliminate the problem most of the time. And that's why recommending power injection actually can solve it, but not necessarily the root of the problem. So understanding that is important. You can do a lot of continuity tests. There's a number of things you can do to check ground between them and make sure that, if you have a resistance level from the beginning to the end, maybe there's something in between that you want to look at. Maybe you have a bad connector. Maybe you have something else that's going on that is causing that particular data to not go through. Because you can have, say, 4 exact lines of 100 pixels coming off the same controller. 3 of them are perfect, and 1 of them flickers every once in a while. It's a good opportunity at that point to say that one line may potentially have an issue with ground, and maybe take a deeper look. Distance defies physics. You don't always need an F-amp until you really do. If you have a long run that's, say, 25, 30 feet that you're coming from your controller to your first prop, somewhere in between that, you are going to have a degradation of data. It's a good idea to drop an F-amp in there. Or, if nothing else, if you have the opportunity to plan, have a differential receiver. These are things that are going to lessen your frustration in what's going on. Why is that particular string not working? These are things to think about. I'm not to read all of the slides, but again, at 15, 20 feet, you're probably okay. Anything over that, definitely think about an F-amp or a data buffer or whatever you want to call it, to be able to boost that signal that additional distance. The 3 pillars of pixel stability, again, voltage, ground, and data. These are the 3 things that you always need to consider and think about. If you're having issues with flickering or colors or freezing or any of this, these are the 3 things that you really want to look at and pay attention to. Is your voltage above 11 volts, especially under load from the power supply? Do you have a solid ground? Are your grounds tied? Is your data clean? By being able to answer these 3 things from a known condition that it is from controller to pixel, 9 times out of 10, you will be able to solve your problem. Smart networking. Timing is everything, literally. Planning the segmentation of your display. If possible, use static IPs and label them clearly. It'll make your life so much easier to know controller 1 is IP 50.10, 50.20. If possible, and 100% optional, to be honest with you, I run my show network on the same network that's in my house. I don't separate anything, but a separate show network from your home network can prevent congestion. With my display, I don't really have an issue. As with the next one, where you can, hardwire everything. Where it makes sense and it's logical, connect via Wi-Fi. Not everything in our displays can be hardwired. It's preferable, but not mandatory. Avoid multicast unless your switch is designed for it. Most of our switches aren't, and that's the challenge with multicast, is it'll just flood your network. But again, if you have ubiquity, then definitely run multicast. But if you have home grade, it's always recommended unicast. That way you have a point A to a point B communication. So if you have an environment that is mixed controllers, make sure you understand how everything is controlled and understand that the differences, and we'll get to it in the next slide. But if you have, for example, my display is all master remote. So it's FPP multi-sync across my entire display, which is all time-stamped syncing. DDP controllers, they're stream-based. It's very reliable. It's very, very small packets, and it's very clean. If you start having drift, it's time to start paying attention to CPU load, Wi-Fi loss, or SD card lag, and we'll take a look at that later. Mitigate drift between wired Ethernet. So what I really mean by this, with the 60%, is if you have a 100 megabit network, don't have anything over 60 megabits. You can test this if you have, say, Wireshark and X-Lights. Run your whole display from X-Lights, use Wireshark, see what the load is, or use even the built-in Windows status system tools to be able to see your performance through your network. And if you really want to get detailed, create a sequence that every 1 second turns on everything for 1 second. 1 second on, 1 second off, 1 second on, 1 second off. It'll give you a visual representation of your display. Is everybody in sync and everybody responding at the same time? Protocol choice. Be honest with you, it is a personal choice. All of this is a personal choice depending on your setup and your display. DDP is the most modern, most efficient way to do it. If you need to run DMX or you need to run older controllers, E131, I started with E131 and ran a show network, and it worked great for many years. I never had a problem. DDP, though, definitely minimizes the load on your controllers and eliminates universe mapping, making things a lot simpler in setting up your display. Again, your choice. Okay. I told you I was going to quickly go through all of that so we can actually get to the more interesting parts of tonight's presentation. Advanced troubleshooting, really finding the ghost in the wires. Logs don't lie. And I can't stress that enough. Logs don't lie, and they should become your best friend. The challenge with logs and with most people is when you look at logs, they're hard to understand. They're hard to interpret. They're like, it's a jumbled mess of information. And how do I interpret what this means or what that means? And hopefully tonight after this, we can get a little more clarity on what to look for. Every problem does lie within one of three layers. Either it's hardware, your setup, software, your configuration, or your network and timing. Avoid random fixes. Gather evidence first. A lot of times, when we look at our displays, we have a tendency to go, oh, well, what about this? Or what about that? And just try things. Please don't. Take a minute, sit back, and we'll talk more about it later. But let's gather evidence and look at what's potentially going on before we start making changes, because one change can lead to 10 more issues that you never intended for. In my world, because I use FPP logs are my compass, to be honest with you. They provide the information and the details I need to be able to figure out what's actually happened or went wrong with my own display. And if you also use FPP, they are a powerful tool that you need to start leveraging. Or if you haven't in the past, should at least take a look at. Ultimately, the idea is to isolate the cause, validate the fix, and prevent reoccurrence. So when I say really, it's once we've done that, part of it is also documenting. What did you learn from that? How did you understand what transpired? How can you look for it in the future in other areas and kind of build that roadmap of managing your display to make it as seamless and user-friendly as possible? And don't repair symptoms, fix the pattern. Log files can show patterns. If we start seeing patterns, if you start seeing patterns in your display, it's an opportunity to take proactive steps to repair those symptoms so future problems don't exist. In FPP, you can log everything. The standard out-of-the-box default logging is info. 9 times out of 10, that's all you need, is the info logging. Sometimes, though, depending on what's going on, you may need to go to debug or excessive. I don't recommend those ever if you're running your show. Only use them as a debugging tool. For today, we're going to spend our time in the info world because most of the information you need to find problems can be found with that log level. The mindset, I kind of alluded to this. Troubleshooting is system thinking. Isolate the areas of your display that are happening. Is it power? Is it data? Is it network? Is it config? Or is it timing? Follow that chain from the very beginning of this presentation when I talked about where it starts from X-Lights to FPP to your controllers. All of those hops, where is the issue at? And isolate your thinking there. Issues are rarely singular. One flicker may lead back to the fact that you have a bad connector. Trace it back to the beginning. Go all the way back. If all else makes sense, swap that cable, swap that network cable. All of those physical aspects, all else being equal, should be the same, even if you change nothing. So if they're not, change the variables that could be in play. And stay evidence-driven. Logs first, guesses last. Literally take the time to read through the logs, understand what's going on. We'll dig into it before you start just arbitrarily making changes, because then you honestly put yourself in a position where you have no idea where you're at. Again, avoid change blindness. The last thing I should say is the last change you made isn't always the cause. There could be things environmentally that happen within your display that could have caused another problem. The last change doesn't mean that you made a problem or something happened. It just could be a quote unquote red herring. Log interpretation basics. I know it's an eye chart, and I apologize ahead of time. But really, before we get into logs, is FPP logs are really very, very well defined in the fact that they talk about the section, whether it's the general, it's a sync, DDP, E131 schedule. There is an entire litany of sections that are available within the log files. It then corresponds to a severity. It's an info, it's a normal event letting you know what's going on, or it's a warn, it's a potential event, or it's an error. And errors you definitely want to start paying attention to. And critical, that is obviously, if you have critical things happening in your log files, definitely get on the Zoom room to figure out what's going on. So I give a kind of an example of a log here. So the info, the schedule, it starts playing the evening show. That was triggered by the sunset from your scheduler. It's loading the playlist is loading all prop sequence info. The multi-sync, though, detected a delay for 212 milliseconds while trying to communicate. This is something you definitely want to pay attention to and take a deeper look at. 212 millisecond delay is absolutely terrible in our displays, especially if you're running 40 milliseconds for your sequences, or 50 milliseconds. You're going to have a definite noticeable delay in your show. Also with DDP, it gives you the active stream, 40 frames per second, all is clean. These are indications of what looks good and what could potentially something to pay attention to. Advanced log analysis literally is use grep, and I'm going to jump into a real actual view and use case of kind of reviewing logs here in a second. But spot patterns, degradation before failure, correlate timestamps with external data, voltage, latency, recognize cascading events, heartbeat, frame skip, auto resync. These tell you that something started with, the heartbeat delay. We lost communication. Why did we lose communication? We had frame skipped and then it auto recovered. But let's go back to the beginning of that chain of events. Why did we lose a heartbeat? What was happening within our network that we maybe need to pay attention to? At this point, you can always validate assumptions, but never assume cause without evidence. And I'm going to take a quick deep breath. Let me go back. So kind of going along with that, performance and syncing. So watch messages, and because I've seen this multiple times, is that, check your CPO, check your SD card IO load, your network throughput irregularity, gradual diff, timing issues. Is it sudden, or does it shift, a millisecond or 10 milliseconds here, 10 milliseconds there? Check your network logs, turn them on, see what's going on to be able to correlate it. Maybe there's an opportunity if you're running Wi-Fi and you have a mesh network. Can you pin your controllers to a single device on your mesh network rather than having it seek for other Wi-Fi points? What else can you look at? So when your show goes sideways, restore before power on. Validate your mouse where everything is reachable. Check remotes. Look for green indicators. Restart FPP if it's offline. Confirm file integrity. To be honest with you, taking the time to go through and doing, a hashed check on each and every one of your files is really, really time consuming. My recommendation is, if you have potentially one sequence that is being a problem child, delete the FECQ off your computer, delete it off all of your instances of FPP, and re-upload it. You should at that point know that it's clean. Same with audio files. I personally have had situations where one audio file was corrupt, and I spent hours trying to figure it out. It would have saved me those hours if I just would have deleted the file everywhere and re-uploaded a clean file. Confirm connectivity, pings between controllers as an example, and then restart safely. And before I go too far, I am going to exit out of here, and I'm going to hop over to here. So what I've done is I've kind of put together a walkthrough of potential scenarios within your log files that you can look for. Some good, others, potentially an issue. As an example here, so the schedule startup, but the media glitch. So in this example here, you can clearly see an OGG file is not a valid audio file when it comes to FPP. It's going to fail. At that point, it's going to continue running, but it's not going to actually have any audio. This is an example of why is my sequence running, but I can't hear anything. At that point, I would then go back and into FPP, and then I would run, and I will share all of these commands, but I would run a grep command for media in my log file, and I got nothing because that was the wrong command, the wrong filter. Oh, so we'll just do air, make it easy. That's why it wasn't working, is because my grep command was grep oh boy, Control Z. This is not going well. Why? All right. So let me start over. Let me go back to my shell command, log in with FPP, my password of Falcon, because I don't change the password. And I will move over to the media folder, to my log folder. LS logs folder, and all right. So, yeah. I'm sorry about that. Actually, I will go back to the presentation. I'll come back to that later. If I go back, running the commands to be able to search your, and I will post them later, to search your log file will give you the opportunity to find the issues and or the errors. That's fine, we're 30 minutes. So, generic troubleshooting. When nothing blinks, go back to basics. Go back to check your power. Make sure that everything's good. Check your ground integrity. Check your data line. Make sure that everything is running. Test your channel outputs. Environmental checks for moisture, broken pixels, software configure. Very close. Threw me off my game. So real quick, I'm not going to talk through all of this. You can take a screenshot. What I try to do is put together basically symptoms and likely root causes and things to check. The other thing that I'm going to close with as it relates to the log files, and I apologize for the hiccup there, but logs aren't just for fixing, they're for forecasting. The best troubleshooting starts with fix. If you can, schedule weekly or daily log rotations. The smaller your log files, the easier they are to read. Integrate Home Assistant, and we're going to go to that here in a second. Flag repeated failures, sync drops, and run a health check before each show. Just I run a bars test up, down, left, right, just to make sure that everything is running every single night. It only takes a few seconds. With that, I want to move on to automation and integration. Connecting FPP APIs, Home Assistant for intelligent control of your display. Allow the computer to do what it does best in alerting you, managing, and watching your display, and or doing things that you used to do manually on your behalf. Automation turns routine into reliability. if you have to go turn something on every night, but you're going to be out with your family and all of a sudden you can't do that and you have no way to turn it on, automation becomes your friend. It introduces, reduces human error and ensures consistency. You don't have to babysit it. That is the most important thing. Over the last couple of years, I've taken a lot of time to automate most of my display, which has led to, stress-free. I can go out to dinner. I don't have to think about it. And if something's going wrong, my system's going to tell me about it without me having to be home to fix it. And a lot of times self-heal. Good automation is really set it and forget it confidently. What is the basis of every automation? Basically, something happens, sunset, schedule, a sensor, an API triggers something else. FPP responds with a status, success, fail, started, stopped, error, whatever the case may be. But keep your logic and your workflows of automation as simple and as manageable as possible. Don't do the mistakes I've made where you try to add 10 automations into a single workflow and then try to debug it later. Don't do that. Keep it as simple as possible. Let it execute one command at a time. Add in recovery, retries, reboots, utilize FPP or whatever controller you have. And always test automations outside of the first hours of your show. That is key. Don't try to add something new or think something's cute while your show's running and people are out front. 9 times out of 10, that's not going to go well. Your show has an API. Use it. I can't stress that enough. If FPP can do it, you can script it. There's nothing within FPP that you can't control outside of being on the screen. You can control it with their API. And I'll show you some of the things you can do and some of the patterns that you can implement to be able to do such things. For example, if you don't have a testing tool for APIs, you can use curl to be able to start a playlist, stop a playlist, check the system status. You can combine automation, and the API help from FPP is incredible. It allows you to test things, work with things, understand it. I mean, the amount of support is absolutely extensive. So smarter home, smarter show. I'm going to hop out of this and I'm going to hopefully be able to show without the same luck I had last time, an example of that. So I'm here in Home Assistant and you can see I've created this just for today, this sample status page where I have my FPP Debian, which is running on a VM within Proxmox. So pay no attention to the CPU utilization because it is a VM. But it can show my actual status. If I go over here, I can see that my show is running and I check Home Assistant, it's running, the status is playing, it's playing the Halloween, and my next scheduled event is tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. I can see my controller is running, is playing, the IP address and my memory utilization. I'm not sure why the BeagleBone shows 0% for the CPU utilization, but it does. But how do you use this? So some prime examples of an example of this is I have automations that automatically when my Debian starts changing to play-in, I actually turn on all of my receivers. So to keep the power off, I don't have any of my receivers running. So the power is shut off to everything. So as it starts to go to playing or to idle, it turns the power on or it turns the power off, as an example. I also have automations that turn my outside lights on. So this one's disabled because of the fact that it's not running my Christmas display, but I have outside lights that is using a Shelly Wi-Fi AC controller that will turn all the lights on, turn all the lights off, just as simple automations. As an example, I have other automations that turn, when I walk out front, turn my front porch light on. But all of these automations are based off of the statuses of FPP. I also have other automations that take this one. And how do I set all of this up? So within Home Assistant, it has this wonderful tool for REST. You can add REST integrations into your Home Assistant. And the example here, I have a simple REST YAML that is using the REST tools to be able to read the status API of FPP and be able to return back all of these different variables. There are hundreds of other ones that you can pull back. These are the ones that I currently use. But there's a large number of them. You can also take it even one step further and use PyScript. So PyScript within Home Assistant allows for you to run Python directly in there. So you could have events triggered to be able to send commands to your FPP controllers. Say you wanted Home Assistant to be your scheduler. So you could have a workflow that says, it's sunset, start my schedule. It's 10 p.m., turn it off, and never use the scheduler in FPP, and do it all through PyScript. The opportunities and the power is absolutely endless on what you can do through this. The other thing that I will show kind of along the same lines, if I go into the multi-sync and I pull up my FPP music. So this is a remote that I have in my display that does nothing more than is used for setting a remote speaker to turning it on and turning it off. As you can see here, the volume I have is set to 0. But what I've done, and content setup, oh boy, status, FPP settings, using using its own built-in Apache server. What I have done is, using the built-in kiosk mode, is I've created this screen that is a digital version of my old push to play that allows for people to be able to tap it. And then as soon as they do that, this is again using the APIs, you'll see that my volume is now set to 60% once it comes back up. Set to 90%. And that was really, again, the power of the API, where I can then use a digital timer rather than a physical timer. So taking this all away, the power of using the API within FPP allows for extensibility within your display that is absolutely astonishing. So automation without mayhem. Even perfect automation needs patience. For example, if you're going to create an automation that says, I'm going to start up all of my controllers, I'm going to power them all on using Wi-Fi plugs, power up all the controllers, ping all of them, all of their statuses, make sure that they're all online. You can then from there, if you want to take a stepped approach, all of your remotes. So you have all of your receiver boards out there that are just connected to a power supply that are effectively dumb until they're asked to do something. You can then power them on once your show starts, minimizing the number of things that are running. I recommend staggering it. I mean, I have 14 power supplies in my display. I try to stagger them so they're not all in rushing at once, using a 5 to 30 second display. Again, using the ready checks before everything is there. If something is wrong, use that opportunity to send yourself a notification. If you're worried about temperature, put temperature sensors in your controller boxes that are Wi-Fi enabled. You can connect to them, be able to make determinations. If FEP isn't responding, you can put in commands to do automatic restarts. The opportunities are endless to be able to use what is there. Again, a practical use case: sunset, power, check, play, all using the power of, say, Home Assistant and the APIs of FPP. And I will say most controllers also have APIs. Most controllers have log files you can review. Take advantage of them. Use them to further your automation and oversight and management of your display, and to be able to proactively see for issues. I mean, to be able to see that it already found that it's not able to communicate and alerted you is a lot more powerful than you going out front and standing in front of your house going, why is the left side of my house not running, or what happened over there? Let the computer be your guide. And with that, I will stop. There's a lot of talking. And any questions? I feel blind.
Okay, John. Unfortunately, there are no questions.
Oh, I don't know if that's unfortunate or not. That was a lot of talking.
Yeah. And I mean, I you're having a little stumbling in there, but you know what? This is the professional triers. We are, trying our best.
The fact is I had Visual Studio Code open on another screen that I accidentally closed that had all the commands.
I mean, I tell my kids in my Cub Scout pack, the motto is do your best, and that's all we can ever do.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I can post they're the basic, tail and grep commands with filters against the log file. The big thing is I think people in general don't always realize that shell is there and to take advantage of it.
Okay. Well, John, thank you very much for being on this week. We'll be back next week. We're still trying to get our next presenter lined up, but we will be back. I guarantee that. I'll see you guys next week. Be good, do good. God bless. Go Bills.
Well, that's it for tonight's lesson in light-based lunacy. So smash that subscribe button, zap a comment below, and share your worst tech fail. We might even feature it in the next class. Until then, stay lit, stay learning, and always remember to bring a backup SD card. Night School dismissed.